Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. We'll be right back to the show. But before we do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, factormeals.com, where if you go to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50, you can get 50% off your first order. That's factormeals.com/unbroken50. If you're like me and you are a person who is busy trying to create a life, heal, work on their health, wealth, and relationships, and not to mention deal with the day-to-days of normal life, you do not have time to be going to the grocery store and trying to figure out what you're going to cook every single day of the week. In fact, one time I did the math and I realized I was spending over 15 hours a week at the grocery store and cooking. When I added Factor, I got to use that time for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my community, and for my business. And so if you're in the place where you need some more support in the kitchen, head to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50 to get 50% off. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. What's up, Unbroken Nation? Hello, my friends. I'm Michael Unbroken, host of the Think Unbroken podcast and founder of thinkunbroken.com. And I'm honored to be your trauma coach and mentor because I believe that everyone is capable of getting unstuck, cultivating self-love, and becoming the hero of their own story. I believe that when implemented correctly, the practical tools and education you will receive from this show will help you lead an unbroken and extraordinary life. I believe that no matter what we come from, that we all have the ability to choose ourselves first, to create and manifest a powerful and grace-filled future and love the reflection in the mirror. I believe that every day is a day to grow, learn, heal, and change. That's why I started my company, thinkunbroken.com, which is an online training and healing and personal growth platform where you get everything that I know about how to get motivated, be accountable, get out of the vortex, and become the hero of your own story through community, connection, and commitment. For more information, visit thinkunbroken.com. Please listen closely as you may learn just one thing that will help you be unbroken. And please share this episode with at least 3 of your friends because we all need community and connection in our healing journey. And be sure to DM me and tag me on Instagram at Michael Unbroken so that I can say hi. I just want to thank you again for being a part of this, for listening, and being a member of the Unbroken Nation. Now, let's get into today's show and make the world unbroken. Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Hope that you're doing well wherever you are in the world. I hope that you're having an amazing day, and I'm joined by the amazing Melanie Weller, who is going to help us understand something that I think might actually change your life. Melanie, my friend, how are you today?
I'm really well. Thank you. How are you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm super good. I'm stoked to have you on because I have studied so much about your expertise, understanding the vagus nerve, understanding the way that our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems work and the whole functions of the body top to bottom. I think this is a beautiful opportunity to go deep. Before doing that, I would love to know about Melanie. Who are you? How'd you get here? What was your journey? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So, I'll say as I specialize in treating the vagus nerve as a pinched nerve, I will say that this is all about figuring out my own vagus nerve and where it's pinched. And I can say that very clearly in hindsight. I was an athletic trainer in college, majored in athletic training, worked as an athletic trainer for a little while after college, and went to physical therapy school. So I've been working with people's bodies for the better part of 30 years, really. And in doing so, one of the things that I really noticed very early on, and especially in once I was finished with physical therapy school, because I ended up working with people who had not found success in other places, that their symptoms didn't fit inside of a box. They hadn't responded to other treatments. And this was very much a piece of my own journey. Like when I had, if I had back pain or had vertigo and things like that, it never really fit inside the box. It wasn't. And I was just very fortunate to work with really brilliant clinicians who regularly thought outside the box, so that when I ran into issues, I was really able to, I had the help there to mitigate them, so that I can really see very easily how I took steps down the road to become one of my more complicated patients at times. And in the midst of branding myself as a stress management expert and having my own practice, my life really and my body really started falling apart too. So I've really had to live this whole stress mitigation thing, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way, and really came to understand my clients at a deeper level through that as well. When I was little, or young child, I have very, very good parents that were well-intentioned, but I didn't really have a voice at home. And my dad had a very traumatic childhood, spent some time in an orphanage. My mom lost her dad and her sister when she was young and had a lot of unresolved grief. And I really absorbed a lot of that as a child, and didn't feel like I had a voice. And even when I sang in the church choir, the youth choir instructor would not let me sing. She used to make me mouth the words. And here I am specializing in the nerve that innervates the vocal cords. And so it's really all about, it's been this very full circle thing to find my own voice. And I so appreciate you sharing your platform to allow me to do that.
Yeah, of course, it's my honor. I think that one of the greatest things that you can do when you have an understanding about something is to share it. I feel in some sense an obligation to have conversations like this, knowing that I invested the better part of a decade and God knows how much money in learning and understanding these things in the same way as you, so that I could heal or understand better my own problems and facilities. And And with doing so, I think about this idea that, okay, how do we take our knowledge and information and spread it at scale to create vast impact? And there's no other better platform for this. And so, for if anything, I'm grateful. But what I'm so curious about, and I think about the understanding the correlation in many aspects of the vagus nerve and the role that it plays and the frenetic chaos that can exist within our physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get there, I think that it would be very pertinent to pause and to have the conversation about what is the vagus nerve. Because I'm going to tell you right now, people listening right now are like, what the hell are you talking about?
Absolutely. So your vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve, and that just means that it starts in your brainstem. There are 12 cranial nerves that come out of our brainstem. And I'm going to give you the vagus nerve does lots and lots of things. It is the biggest component of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your grace under pressure, your calm, your rest and digest, and its pleasure also. And most of us are familiar when our vagus nerve isn't working so well and our fight and flight systems have taken over. When we go to do public speaking or something that makes us similarly nervous, and we get a lump in our throats and our palms sweat and our hearts race and our stomachs feel funny, because those are all vagus nerve mediated functions. And when we get nervous, our vagus nerve gets dialed down and our fight and flight gets dialed up. The vagus nerve as it comes out of your brainstem, it goes down to innervate your heart, and then it loops back up to innervate your vocal cords. So I like to think of it as the nerve that allows us to speak our hearts. It continues down through the diaphragm and innervates the digestive system. So it innervates the muscles of the digestive system, as well as it also mediates vitamin B12 absorption, digestive enzyme, and bile secretion. In women, it goes into the cervix. And as I mentioned earlier, it mediates sweating, it mediates inflammation. It's in all of your senses. It innervates the skin of your ear canal. It innervates your tongue. It's involved in smell, though the last research I read on that, they're not sure they know it's connected. They just don't know they haven't figured out the exact mechanism yet. It's involved with your eyes. And so it's really the piece of your body that your vagus nerve isn't in is your adrenal glands. So, which are certainly involved in our fight and flight responses.
Yeah, and it's everywhere, right? And
it's everywhere.
And I think that one of the things that is done very poorly, especially in Western American society, is education and understanding our actual physical bodies as human beings who are in these all day. It is absolutely shocking to me that people know more about the inner workings of a mechanical vehicle than they do about the machine that they're walking in around all day. And so as I sit and I think about that now, yes, given you've said all this, but what does it really do?
Right. So I say the same thing. We know more about our cars than we do about our bodies. And so your vagus nerve, it really keeps you calm. It reduces inflammation. It makes you feel good. It does all the things that make you feel good.
Yeah. And how does it do that?
Well, it uses the same. Well, I'll give a couple different answers to this. A lot of what your brain does is called descending inhibition. So if you think about like if you know somebody that's had a stroke or a severe brain injury and that maybe they have extra muscle tone and say they have a hard time straightening out their arm since the injury and that their elbow might be flexed and their wrist might be flexed up close to their body. And when you have a stroke, you lose the descending inhibition. And so then you get your muscle tone escalates. It goes way up. And so there's nothing to dampen it. So your vagus nerve does a lot of dampening, but it also does a lot of So if you, in terms of inflammation, like, when, whether it's through injury or eating something inflammatory, your vagus nerve is going to dampen the inflammation to try and take care of it. And so it's really uh, the piece that, like, once it's really your threat recovery, from a trauma standpoint, it's like once you've had the fight and flight and you've finished that part of the stress, it's what calms you down from that. It uses the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is the same neurotransmitter that your muscles use. And as a physical therapist, that was really part of my attraction to addressing it as a pinched nerve in the first place, because you get these very beautiful musculoskeletal shifts with it.
And so with understanding that, and I think there'll be a lot of people who are like me, fascinated with it, and will take the deep dive. And part of my experience with it was, how do I learn to regulate this, or at least understand how to not aggravate it? Now, before we get there, I think it'd be really important to ask this question, especially because people are listening who are seeking something particular here. What is the correlation between trauma, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, i.e., abuse in youth or accidents or whatever that thing may be, and the correlation with the impact that the vagus nerve has on regulation?
So a lot of the research around the vagus nerve, and certainly the polyvagal theory that Stephen Porges has brought forward, focuses a lot on how stress and trauma basically leave us in a state of fight or flight, and that we're not able to get into that more relaxed, that calmer state. We know through that research that trauma always affects the voice and the breath. And your vocal cords and your diaphragm are horizontally oriented in the body. Your diaphragm is the muscle that you breathe with. And when nobody experiences stress or trauma of any kind, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, and has really beautiful arm swing when they walk. We all lock up, our trunks lock up. And so we really embody trauma on our transverse plane, on the plane on which we rotate. We embody trauma in rotation, or through lack of rotation. So what I've developed over the years is this system of evaluating rotation head to toe in the body. And it's been really amazing to me. And I really want to take this to research it on a bigger scale, how when I see people that are really severely locked up at multiple joints in rotation, and I ask them if they're having suicidal thoughts, or if they've, how their mental health state is, the answer is always either, yes, I'm having suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts, sometimes suicidal planning, or I feel like I'm dying on the inside.
Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Michael here. I just wanted to take a moment and invite you to the Think Unbroken community coaching sessions. We start these sessions at the beginning of every month, and we take a deep dive into the baseline and frameworks of what it means to get out of the vortex and become the hero of your own story through community, connection, commitment, and education. You can learn more about this at healtraumacoach.com, where you can fill out an application and sign up for a trauma healing call with me or my team to see if the Think Unbroken community coaching sessions is right for you. That's at healtraumacoach.com. We start at the beginning of every month. I cannot wait to see you there. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm not the right fit for you, we will help you find the person that can help you on your journey.
And so
that's super fascinating to me. How does one make the hypothesis that those are somehow correlated. I'm curious about what you saw that led you to the place to go, oh, I think there's actually something here.
So a number of years ago, I had a patient walk in, and I got a phone call from a industry colleague. She's in the fitness industry here locally. And she called me up and said, my friend really needs you. Can you see him? Like, how soon can you see him? And it worked out that I was able to see him that day. And I didn't have any information on what was wrong with him. I figured he hurt his back or something like that. And so he comes into my office, and he had an acute situation that left him in a hallucinogenic state. And he couldn't make eye contact with anyone because their faces were melting. And this had been going on for several days. And he had tried to get help in other ways, and he just couldn't get anybody to hear him, to listen to him, And so I listened to his whole story. This was something that at the time I had zero experience in treating people that were in that kind of acute onset hallucinogenic state. And and so I contacted the psychiatrist that I know. My initial response was like, oh, this is not in my wheelhouse, but it was very clear to me that it was not the right thing to turn him away either. So I got him set up with help outside of my office. And I said, well, I'm going to decompress your vagus nerve while you're here, and we'll, and hopefully that'll at least make you feel a little bit better. And I would say that he was not even in vagus nerve decompression. He was in vagus nerve lockdown. And you wouldn't have imagined that his rotation was that limited based on how he walked. But as a physical therapist, one of the things that I know how to do is check people's uncompensated range of motion, so I can tease out where they're cheating and where they're not cheating. And we are all masters of compensation. We are very, very clever beings, and we will all take the path of least resistance for movement. So it was not so much like he was walking like Frankenstein or anything like that. You would have thought he was moving fairly normally when he walked. But when I went in and isolated his upper neck range of motion and his trunk range of motion, and even looking at his hip rotation and his tibial rotation, which tibia is your shin bone, it was all gone. Like, it was just minimal amounts of range of motion there. And I took him through I did all of my vagus nerve decompression techniques on him. And I will say I showed up not only with my technical skills, but I really showed up also with my softer intuitive skills. And it really taught me a lot about bringing all of myself to the table and not segmenting myself as a clinician, or between my personhood and my clinicianhood, or between my soft and my hard skills, because that has been I think a challenge for me over the years in terms of integrating those. But at the end of our session, an hour and a half later, 90% of his hallucinations were gone. And he texted me later that night and said, Melanie, you saved my life, and not in the cute kind of way. I was planning on killing myself tonight, and now I feel like I can go forward.
That's incredibly powerful. And especially when you recognize the impact that just a physical element can have on the emotional and mental capacity that we have. I think it's probably a huge disservice that somehow we've separated the brain body connection in the way that we have in this society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. In the last couple of months, I've taught the residents at a local hospital about how mental health and the physical body, and what I consider red flags.
I would love to know what those are, because like, knowing that this is primarily something that is a conversation geared towards mental health, how do you know? Because I think there's red flags that you may notice within yourself that could be a causation of going, okay, there might be something here about me that I actually really need to suss out. What
Mm-hmm.
would you consider to be a red flag?
Oh, from a patient standpoint, I would say maybe multiple joint pain. Like it may not seem like a big deal, but just like some overall stiffness. So people with anxiety and often in depression too will really be limited at their necks. And so there'll be some limited neck range of motion, but it's not, but that in itself is not necessarily a red flag. It's really about the combination of things. So if your neck is tight and you're feeling like it can be hard to get a breath, or like you have times where you're short of breath and you're otherwise healthy, you're not somebody that has asthma, or you're too young for and healthy for heart disease. This is a difficult, I'll say, I haven't really framed it this way. I take people, I know when we're on video, I could take people, I can demonstrate some of the tests, like the self-assessment that I have people go through, but it's really, it's really about how you rotate. So it can be as simple as turning your head side to side and seeing how far you can go. If you can turn your head comfortably to one side and then bring your ear towards your chest in that position, you should be able to flex forward 45 or 50 degrees. If you hit a brick wall right at the top and you can barely bring your ear towards your chest, that would be one small red flag, or maybe one yellow flag. And then if you're looking at shoulder motion, like if you put your arms up like goalposts and rotate them down, you should be able to go about 70 degrees on each side, and without bringing your shoulder blades up over the tops of your shoulders. And if you're not able to, if you're only rotating 20 or 30 degrees down and you don't have any shoulder pathology going on, I would consider that another red flag. If you give yourself a hug and with your weight really even on your sit bones and rotate your body side to side, you should be able to go at least 45 degrees. 60 degrees is considered normal, but I don't fuss too hard over 45 degrees. But if you are really having a hard time rotating in those directions, that is one way. The perhaps the easiest way to really self-assess this, though, is through breath. And so even if you just put one hand, I'll have you do this and you can tell me how you feel with it. But if you put one hand over your heart and take the other hand and try to put it on the backside of your ribs. If you can get it to the backside of your heart, that's great. So just like the backside of your hand, and take a deep breath. Take a couple deep breaths in that position. And tell me, so do you feel how your ribs move your hand on the front of your chest when you breathe? Mm-hmm. What happens to your ribs on the back with your backhand?
They're also moving.
Okay, good. So a lot of people don't expand their ribs on the backside of their chest at all, like on the backside of their ribs.
Shallow breathing, right? And so
it's shallow breathing. It's upper chest breathing, and it's no back breathing at all. So
the way that I discovered that, for lack of a better term, my vagus nerve was out of whack was because I actually could not take a diaphragmatic breath, meaning the biggest breath that I could take was less than 2 seconds as an inhale. And in that time, it freaked me out really bad because I knew that I was under this immense amount of stress, and I knew that my life was kind of chaotic at the time, and I just uprooted myself and I travel across the world, and I was in this place where I was new and unfamiliar and stepping into a new trajectory and understanding and working through and navigating trauma. And I recognized one day, I was like, I can't breathe. And it was one of the most terrifying experiences that I had. On the backside of that, it lasted for 7 months. So someone listening right now, I know without question cannot take that breath. And all of the signs, just based off of the self-assessment, probably point to the idea that something is awry. how do you step into this place where you start to rectify and get back to what we would call normality or baseline in consideration of our human body?
At the very basic level, I believe it's, I think one, you there are very simple breathing exercises you can do to give your vagus nerve more space, and really just paying attention to your breath, practicing breathing, can be a huge thing. Going back quickly to what you were saying about your limitation inhaling, I guess for me that shows up more. I note more limitations exhaling. I find people's exhalations because they're um like their lungs are overinflated. I think it's at some level, but I in I, at the, in terms of just getting the first step is really just to have a conversation with your body and to learn how your body says yes and how your body says no. Because by the time you're in any kind of physical pain or anxiety or trauma response, your body is screaming no. And we do not have a language for communicating with our bodies. And I think really just tapping in and knowing that and not dismissing your body as, your mind is a very slippery liar. Your body really holds your truth.
Yeah. And how do you start to, I think that there are people right now who have been, I know this, that there are people who have been impacted by traumatic experiences on multiple levels in so
Mm-hmm.
many ways that this sounds incredibly foreign, right?
Yeah,
Because they're just now getting to this place where they're even assessing that there may be something wrong. Now, understanding that that the vagus nerve can play such a huge role in recovery is what I will label this at this time. Where do you really begin, right? Because I think that you must have people who walk into you off the street, no idea what's going on. Their body is always in sympathetic. They are freaking
sure.
out constantly and they just need relief. But they don't understand the impact of the past and how, if it is true, which I believe it is, that we are the sum total of all of our experiences leading to this moment, how then do you hit the pause button and go, okay, I need to revamp this. I need to understand what's going on. I need support here.
Well, so the difference, this is where the soft skills really come in. And I think are really magical, because the difference between acute, subacute pain and chronic pain, and I would extend this to any chronic way of being that we embody or any chronic limiting belief, is that chronic situations get locked into our limbic systems, which is where our emotions are. And you cannot logic yourself out of your limbic system. You need a story, or you need an emotional key to unlock the chronic situation from your brain. And so I use a lot of storytelling. And and I've and this is part of a bigger system that I believe is held by the vagus nerve, and is really, at the end of the day, how the cosmos is coded into us. And that you don't have to be, I can technical speak vagus nerve stuff all day long, and I think it's amazing and it gets me excited, but it's really, for most people, it is absolutely boring. And so when people are, and so our bodies hold stress in very predictable ways in general. Some of us, most of us will we'll just hold it really predictably. And so when if we think about what, like if your anxiety and your stress, your trauma shows up in your head and neck, if part of your symptoms are that you get anxiety and neck pain with your uh, stress and trauma, then you can think about where your heroics and your desires are at odds with each other. Like, where is like the head, like the head would be where like we wear our crown, or where we'd wear our, the knight's armor, like that lead, where we lead from. And where are your heroics and your desires that you speak from your throat? Where are they at odds with each other? And in the midst of my own midlife crisis, I really discovered how incredibly specifically stress lives in the body. But I will back up before I go into this and say that when people are really overwhelmed, very often the only thing that I will do is put my hand on the backside of their heart while they're laying on my table, or for example, if they're seeing me in person. I work with people online too, but I will just have them breathe into the backside of their heart. And it can be just very simple and very powerful. And I will tell them about my favorite proverb from a tribe in the Andes Mountains that says, your future is behind you, propelling you forward. And your past is in front of you, waiting for you to make peace with it and clear your way. And that I want you to really breathe into your future. You are held. The universe has your back.
Did you know that you can sponsor an episode of the Think Unbroken podcast? All you have to do is visit thinkunbrokenpodcast.com, and there's a little coffee icon down there at the bottom of the screen, or you can click the sponsor an episode link and your name will go on the sponsored list for sponsors of the Think Unbroken podcast. One of the things you may not know is that this is an internal podcast. There's no major sponsors. Coca-Cola doesn't sponsor us. We don't get the Joe Rogan endorsement. We're over here trying to create massive change in the world, and I cannot do it alone, and I need your help. So if you have the ability, please visit thinkunbrokenpodcast.com, help sponsor an episode, and we will put your name on the sponsorship list where everyone can see your contribution to the unbroken nation. My friend, I appreciate it so much. I want to continue to make these shows and bring tremendous value to your life, to our world, and to the unbroken nation, but I cannot do it alone. If you have the ability, please visit thinkunbrokenpodcast.com and sponsor an episode. All right, my friends.
And that very, very simple thing does a lot to calm people down. I can amplify how well that exercise works by adding some other positioning with the exercise. But if somebody is really stressed out, one, I will just have them bring their attention to their breath and give them a physical cue like that with my hand on the back of their heart. I will also ask them to tell me what their soul looks like. And I've had many people that have been able to mitigate their panic attacks by developing their relationship with their soul. And when they're standing in their soul, and they have this idea about what he or she looks like, they're really able to mitigate that. And it does amazing things for the vagus nerve. It never ceases to amaze me how powerful those relatively simple and seemingly non-clinical approaches really are for people. So
I'm so curious, and I have to ask this. Why is there such an incredible impact of having that kind of emotional release on stress, tension, anxiety, depression, vagus nerve, the entirety of us as a human being?
Mm-hmm.
What happens in that moment that you think you could pinpoint and go, this is why?
I think you see yourself as bigger than your physical body. I think that you see yourself at a truer level, and you step out of your own story.
Imagine that must be pretty uncomfortable for most people, yeah?
Well, it often comes with some tears, for sure. Sometimes it comes with a little bit of anger too, but all of the leading pain science experts will tell you that they get really excited when somebody cries or gets angry when they explain pain to them, because they know they're going to get better.
Mm.
And
Yeah, that's
so
fascinating.
I see that as a really positive thing, that we're moving the way the physical body is storing the trauma when you get that emotional release.
Yeah, and I think for so many people, myself included, like that emotional release was very much about stepping through the fear of being an emotional human being, which
Absolutely.
is such a hard. Like saying it now is very easy, but in the moment, 8, 9 years ago, especially when I started doing intensive body work, like having these moments of like allowing the freedom to be a human being is often very uncomfortable. And so I think that's really beautiful that you're finding that people are having that experience with you, because that's taking a step into humanity.
Oh, absolutely. And we are sentient beings, and I think that intuition is the thing that we're all really missing, and that our for all of our amazing scientific developments, we've just forgotten about how uh like about our feelings, and not just even in the emotional part, but just in how our body communicates with the bigger picture. And that really happens through the vagus nerve. The research shows that when solar and space weather disrupt the electromagnetic field of the earth, it is measurable in our vagus nerves, and the extent to which it's disruptive is dependent on the strength of your interpersonal connections.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that. I mean, I would have to read the research to go, yes, that sounds true. I will take your word for it as an expert. But part of me goes, yes, of course, I believe that, because why not? Like in reality, I often think about this, Melanie, and this isn't to go totally left field, but the fact that we're even alive is incredible. So why is it not plausible that that could hold true? And then on the backside of that, I think about when people come into this place in which they're ready to step into a new understanding of who they are. It's almost like a reclaiming of humanity when you are in this and you notice that people do the work and they step into, now, wow, I've noticed that I can breathe again, anxiety is less impactful, I've done the things, I'm spending time. I mean, I feel like it just holds true that we become more in tune with who we are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the body is, and the cosmos, that bigger picture is literally mimicked in our bodies through our anatomy and through our, like even down at the cellular level. And ancient myths tell us the story of our anatomy and physiology, and are so valuable in terms of uh, seeing your own trauma and the opportunity that it offers, like where the path forward is, and being able to have it transition it from being the victimization to an initiation. And I talk about pieces of my own story through the lens of the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris. And mythology, among many things, was a way that ancient people communicated their sciences. So in the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris are numbers of the Earth's precessional cycle. And there are other major myths from other cultures that have the same numbers. And so we know that this was a way they communicated the cosmology, which they understood well, how the stars moved cyclically. And in the myth of Isis and Osiris, Osiris was the king of Egypt, and his brother Set was angry and jealous and wanted to be king. And Set tricked Osiris into laying down in a bejeweled coffin, had his 72 soldiers nail it shut and carry him to the Nile River and send him downstream to his death. Osiris's wife Isis found out about this. She retrieved his body, took him back to a cave, and breathed new life into him. Set found out about this and was furious. And he tracked down Osiris, chopped his body into pieces, and scattered them down the Nile. Isis went and retrieved all the pieces, took him back to the cave. She found everything except for his phallus, and for that she made a new one. She brought him back to life long enough to conceive their divine child, Horus. And then Osiris went on to be king of the underworld, which for the Egyptians was where all life came from and where all treasures were found. And for most of the people, if you imagine yourself being in that story, everybody probably thought Osiris's destiny was to be the king of Egypt. But his true destiny was to be the king of the underworld. And he literally had to come apart to come back together in a new way. And we use dismemberment metaphors in our language all the time. We say we're falling apart. We can't get it together. Our hearts are broken. Our lives are shattered. We'd give our left arm for something that we really want. And so, and when you've had trauma, and especially severe trauma, you can't be the same person that you were before the trauma. It's an opportunity to come together in a new way. And it's not that that's easy, but relating to the story is very soothing. And one of the easiest ways to understand further how mythology talks about our anatomy is through Western astrology. The ventricles in our brain that make cerebral spinal fluid look just like the ram's horns that represent Aries. And in astrology, Aries rules the head. And I have, for those watching on video, this is a compilation of MRI images that give you a 3D picture of what the ventricles of the brain look like. And it looks very much like the ram's horns that represent Aries. And the way our hyoid bone in our throat sits on top of our larynxes looks just like the symbol for Taurus. And Taurus rules the throat. And our aortic arches are the same shape as the symbol for Leo, and Leo rules the heart. And so it works this way the whole way through the body. And there are mechanisms and structures within the cells that mimic the constellations too. Adenosine triphosphate that makes energy for our muscle contractions and for our cells for all cellular activity is looks like the Aries constellation. And so we can really very prescriptively look at story in association with diagnosis. And this works across other cultures as well. The way our brainstem and cerebellum are together on the underside of our brain looks like Ganesh, and the roots of our trigeminal nerves are the eyes, and the brainstem's the trunk, and the cerebellum are the ears. Ganesh is an elephant-headed deity, and the biblical story of the Temple of the Ark of the Covenant describes cranial anatomy in quite a bit of detail. And the Egyptian myth of the Apis Osiris bull describes laryngeal anatomy in quite a bit of detail. And so you can really use stories to, one, dig into the stress, and two, I've turned this into a form of energy medicine, and I use it as a form of guided imagery as well. And you can really, I taught a group of clinicians and health professionals this year, and they took what I taught them and have been doing even more amazing things. But when you go through like if you're going to visualize the bull in your throat, you can visualize what's happening with it and what it needs, and really heal your trauma at such a deep level without getting re-traumatized in the process.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me, Melanie. And I am a proponent of the idea of we are the stories that we tell ourselves. And thus, if you think about the correlation between generational trauma and the way that carries through your DNA, and knowing since the birth of man, we are still carrying that same DNA. And whether or not you love mythology, and I personally do, I love that you use that limerick, because to me, I love that story so much. It's played a role in my life. And I think about the impact of having this conversation within yourself, allotting you the space of it's okay. Like, you are allowed to heal. You are allowed to be better. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to whatever that thing is. And then having the support of a proctor, because I think that mind-body connection starts to become more true when you're doing both simultaneously. And there's no question that in my own journey, the vast majority of my growth happened in those moments of which it was like, coercion. Like, here we are, these things are happening, and I feel like change is coming. I'm fascinated by this, and I think that so many people are going to want to dive deeper into this. Before I ask you my last question, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. You can go to embodyyourstar.com. And that will, if you opt in there, it'll send you a vagus nerve decompression course, and you can check that out for yourself. All of my social media is also Embody Your Star, and all of that's linked there. But if you just go to embodyyourstar.com, it'll give you everything that you need.
Beautiful. And I will say this for those listening who are like, what? I still don't get it. Go and read the download, learn about the idea of decompressing the vagus nerve. It will change your life. I promise you this, only from my own personal experience and nothing else. It's not anecdotal. Melanie, my last question for you is, what does it mean to you to be unbroken?
For me, to be unbroken is to really be tapped into your power, and to know that to really understand the power of the creator within you. And that no matter what happens in this world, you are so much bigger and have this deeper, like this depth of essence that that's just truly magical. In Egyptian mythology, like in their creation mythology, what I think are the cardinal directions are knowledge, wisdom, magic, and truth. And in our society, we value knowledge, wisdom, and truth very well, but we don't really have a value system for magic. And for me, being unbroken is really connecting with your magic.
That's beautiful, Melanie. I love it. Could not agree more. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing this incredible story. Everyone, please go and check out Melanie's work. It's absolutely incredible. Please like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend. And until next time, my friends, be unbroken. I'll see ya. Unbroken Nation, hope that you just got a tremendous amount of value from today's episode. I want to know what you think. Please do me a favor and review, rate, and share the episode with 3 friends on social media today. It would mean the world if you did, because ultimately at the end of the day, creating community and connection is how we heal generational trauma in the world. And I need your help to do that, Unbroken Nation. So if you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you are, please like, comment, share, review. I want to know not only what you like about the show, but how I can make the show better, how I can make this further about helping you on your healing journey. So do me a favor, and when you do, shoot me a screenshot of you making the review to my DM at Michael Unbroken on Instagram, so that I can have a conversation with you, say hi, and more importantly, so I can share it with the Unbroken Nation. Thank you so much, my friend. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of live coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program.